But we're pushing wind, we're also pushing solar, but you have to look at the numbers, and that's what we look at. The numbers are that 50% of our electricity is produced by coal, another 20% is produced by nuclear, roughly another 20% is produced by natural gas. Then you have about 6-7% from renewables, which is mostly hydro, and you have less than 1% by wind and solar. So we have to look at those percentages. There's a large opportunity there, and I encourage the students to study these issues and do not just listen to one side of the issue. Study it deeply so that you know what you're talking about. I go back then also, that's why we're African American Environmentalist Association. We don't own any component of any of those sectors, whether it's coal, nuclear, natural gas, even wind and solar. Now there's a green movement coming on now that will basically be pushing carpentry, electricians, and plumbers. And I think that's a very good area to go into, in addition to the sciences. So we have to look at the comprehensive ones. So we go for the bang for the buck. We are the SWAT team. We go out where the ugliness is. A lot of people don't like us when we come up with these positions. But it's my opinion that the African American community has to look at the full spectrum of the sector when it comes to environment. So you place global warming, the most important environmental issue facing us today. We don't necessarily focus first on the polar bear. What we know is that a hotter summer cooks up a hotter smog. And if you don't have air conditioning and you have asthma, you have no defense. If you don't have a car, your child is going to suffer getting them to the emergency room. That's what drives me. And many of you out there who've had asthma attacks know what I'm talking about. So if you don't have air conditioning in the summertime when areas are in non-attainment, and every single American metropolitan area is a non-attainment area according to the Clean Air Act. So we try to come up with practical solutions. We know what the practical solution is. Just like many people have ideas about bailing out the economic and financial solution today, but these are very complex and convoluted issues to try to solve. And so that's where we come at it from. It's good to do the wind and solar, and we do that, but frankly, the African American community cannot afford to ignore these other areas.
And Mr. McDonald, you touched on how complex all of this is. For some of the young people who are interested in gaining more exposure to some of the different facets of this industry, what would you recommend?
I'd recommend approaching some of these big-time companies in the room here today and asking them to sponsor you an internship program. The environmental movement is not a little sandals and incense and rabbits crowd. I was here in 1981 when it was. We had little offices up on Pennsylvania Avenue on Capitol Hill. But now their offices look like McDonald's and Exxon Mobil down on K Street. The environmental movement, the Washington, D.C., but the environmental movement is a $6 billion a year industry. You add up the budgets of all the environmental groups, it's not a little bitty thing anymore. It's a $6 billion a year industry. You should make your impact there. Now, many blacks work in the industry area. They work for the Exxon Mobils and the energy companies and the gas companies. When I go out there, even to the nuclear plants, there are blacks everywhere. Unfortunately, when you go to the environmental groups, we're not there. And that's a huge problem that must be addressed. Now, we have to do that dirty business, and it makes people angry at us. But we do it. But we also try to solve the problem by implementing minority internship programs. Now, I'm old. I'm getting old and asthmatic now, so I can't do it all. My son's over here doing our video. He knows. I passed asthma on him, but my father passed it to me. So one of you, please take up the mantle. Talk to these people with the big money. Have them sponsor you with some of these environmental groups that need your brain power.